Hi, I'm Bob. Welcome back to the tutorial for the exercises of the textbook Microeconomics Theory and Applications with Calculus, the 5th edition. We will solve the two exercises about the network externality and economies of scale at the end of chapter 11, Monopoly and Monopsony. Here's exercise 6.1. A monopoly produces a good with a network externality at a constant marginal and average cost of $2. In the first period, its inverse demand curve is P equals 10 minus Q. In the second period, its demand is P equals 10 minus Q unless it sells at least 8 units in the first period. If it meets or exceeds this target, then the demand curve rotates out by B. That is, it sells B times as many units for any given price, so that its inverse demand curve is P equals 10 minus Q over B. The monopoly knows that it can sell no output after the second period. The monopoly's objective is to maximize the sum of its profits over the two periods. In the first period, should the monopoly set the output that maximizes its profit in that period? How does your answer depend on B? We address the problem in 3 steps. In the first step, we calculate the total profit of the two periods if the monopoly maximizes its profit in the first period. In the second step, we calculate the total profit if it does not maximize its first period profit but produces A units in the first period. In the final step, we compare the two total profits and find how it depends on the parameter B. First, if the monopoly maximizes its profit in the first period, it produces at the output level at which marginal cost equals marginal revenue. For a linear inverse demand function, we can write the marginal revenue function directly. The profit maximizing output is 4. From the inverse demand, we find the monopoly price, $6. The first period profit is $16. Since it sells less than A units in the first period, it faces the same demand in the second period and makes an identical profit. Therefore, the total profit over the two periods is $32. Second, we consider the case where the monopoly produces 8 units in the first period. From the inverse demand function, it charges $2. It's the same as its average cost. So its first period profit is 0. The monopoly has no incentive to produce more than 8 units because it leads to a negative profit in the first period. We now consider the second period. It faces a demand curve that is flatter. Using marginal cost equals marginal revenue, we can obtain the profit maximizing output Q hat, 4B. The monopoly price is $6. The profit is 16 times B dollars. The total profit for the 2 periods is 16 times B dollars. Finally, we compare the 2 profits. We find that the monopoly should maximize its first period profit if B is less than 2. It should produce A units of output if B is greater than 2. It makes no difference if B equals 2. This solution suggests that if the demand curve is very flat in the second period, or in other words, if the positive network externality is relatively large, the monopoly will sell its products at a lower price in the first period to maximize its long-run profit. Let's solve exercise 6.2. A monopoly chocolate manufacturer faces 2 types of consumers. The larger group, the hoi polloi, loves desserts and have a relatively flat, linear demand curve for chocolate. The smaller group, the snobs, is interested in buying chocolate only if the hoi polloi do not buy it. Given that the hoi polloi do not buy the chocolate, the snobs have a relatively steep linear demand curve. So the monopoly's possible outcomes: high price and low quantity, or low price and high quantity, and explain the condition under which the monopoly chooses to cater to the snobs rather than to the hoi polloi. The hoi polloi have a relatively flat linear demand curve, the blue one. The snobs have a relatively steep demand curve, the black one. The monopoly can only sell its products to the hoi polloi or the snobs. If it sells to the snobs, the monopoly optimum occurs at E1 with high price P1 and low quantity Q1. If it sells to the hoi polloi, the monopoly optimum occurs at E2 with low price and high quantity. Whether the monopoly chooses to cater to the snobs or the hoi polloi depends on the specific demand curves it faces. After knowing the parameters of the inverse demand functions of these 2 types of consumers, we can compare the profits and make a decision. Thank you very much for solving the exercises with me today. See you tomorrow. Take care. Thank you for watching this video and subscribing to my YouTube channel. See you next time.